Welcome to the Pickleball Recovery Podcast, where we highlight products and practices to help you feel better faster, so you can spend less time stiff, sore, and injured, and more time on the court doing what you love. This podcast is sponsored by AlloMD. Don't just mask pain, eliminate it. AlloMD provides intense relief and advances continual repair for both acute injuries and chronic pain. All-natural, patented technology developed by doctors to get you back in the game fast without the use of opioids, steroids, or NSAIDs. AlloMD, harnessing the power of pure natural ingredients that provide deep, penetrating repair. Patented, validated, natural. Learn more at www.allomd.com and make sure to use the discount code PBR at checkout to save $5 off your order. You can follow Beth on Instagram at Beth Bellamy Pickleball. I forgot to ask her that in the interview. My apologies, Beth. So sharing it here. And follow her. She's an amazing woman with an amazing family, total class act all the way, and phenomenal pickleball player. So one last thing, got a favor to ask. If you're enjoying the content here on Pickleball Recovery, would you share it with someone you play with? You know somebody who's struggling with X, Y, Z, right? Whether it's their elbow, their back, their nutrition, their hydration, their sleep, any of that. Just tell them about the podcast. The best way for this podcast to help more people is by word of mouth. And so anybody that you'd share this with, whether you want to tag them on Instagram or Facebook, or you just tell them when you're at the court next time, just say, hey, listen, I'm really enjoying this podcast. You should check it out. It's called Pickleball Recovery. And I would just be so appreciative of you doing that. Okay. Would you do that? Thanks. All right. Well, listen, let's go. Sit back, relax, enjoy the ride, and I'll see you on the other side. Beth Bellamy, thanks for joining me on Pickleball Recovery.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
We are on location. It's a rough location. We had to dig deep to handle the view here, but we are here in your beautiful home in Bell Canyon, California.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. They let me in at the gate, so
that's a positive.
That was good start. And we're gonna have a conversation today. You are lighting it up right now on the pickleball circuit.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're like got the Midas touch. Like you're getting, how many Takea gold water bottles have you gotten so far?
I don't know. My kids lost a few of them, so I was kind of annoyed.
Well, you're doing well when you've actually lost track of how many you've lost.
Yeah, I guess so.
Then things are going really well.
No,
but yeah, congratulations to all your success. You've been on fire this year.
Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And as you know, not half the battle, but a large part of the battle for us is staying healthy to be able to compete at the highest level.
Yep.
And pickleball is a little weird, as you've experienced by now, the way we run tournaments.
Yes.
These endurance fests. I don't know how else to describe them.
I think people would be surprised if they realized, how long that we're out on the court sometimes. But I also like the fact that you can play an event in one day and be done. So there's pluses and minuses, for everything.
It's true. So give somebody a sense of you're playing, whether it's mixed, women's, or singles. Your bracket starts at usually 8?
It depends. Mixed a lot of the time starts at 8 because those are usually the bigger draws.
Yep.
The women sometimes will start, 10,
okay.
11. But definitely, you're not sleeping in. You're getting up and getting over there and warming your body up. Yep. Probably, at least half an hour to an hour before the start time. And then, the trick is just you're playing matches, but you have to stay loose all day because the matches can go. A lot of times it's dark when we finish. So, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining because it's great if you last all day and that's a definite positive. But if you do that day after day, if you have a couple long events in a row, it's definitely taxing. And so I feel lucky that I feel like my body's kind of used to it now a little bit more. And I do a lot of work off the court to try to prepare for those long, days.
Yep.
And when I first started playing pickleball, I was so excited about it. I did get a couple injuries, had a calf issue that took about 6 months to really heal.
Yep.
And so I've tried to not just keep from getting new injuries, but also prevent old ones from coming back. So
Once was enough.
Exactly.
When did you get into pickleball?
Let's see. I think the first time I played was at my parents' house in Florida maybe a year or so before the pandemic.
Okay.
But just like one day
Gotcha.
and never played again for, a while. And then sometime during COVID, we, at my old house, resurfaced one of the tennis courts that was in our community and put in a basketball court. And as an afterthought, we threw in a couple pickleball courts. We're like, oh, we can fit those over there. Those would be great. And didn't even think anything of it. And I didn't even use them in the beginning. But some of our friends, my good friend Anna Shirley, would be up there playing. Sometimes she always invited me to come up and play with us. And I'd hear them laughing because I could kind of see them from where I was playing another sport, paddle tennis down the way a little bit.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, they're having a lot of fun up there. So anyway, I got pulled into it, and they were nice enough to let me join their group, and kind of just went from there. In the beginning, they were like, are you going to play tournaments? I'm like, no, definitely not. Like, and, next thing I know,
last words.
Exactly. Next thing I know, I'm playing tournaments. So I just got pulled into it, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the fact that you mentioned there was a lot of laughter, right, on the court. Like there's definitely, it's not just that the ball is loud and the paddles are loud, just the amount of laughter that happens on the courts is greater than a lot of the other adjacent courts.
Right, because it's so inexact in pickleball. There's never like a real good bounce. You just have to kind of live with what happens. I mean, in the beginning, I think one of the things that took me a little bit to get used to was you'd think the point was going to be over because you're like, oh, well, that's terrible. And you'd almost bail out of the point. But everybody hits bad shots, and it's kind of hard to put the ball away. So the point goes on, and it creates these hilarious situations. So I think that's what created a lot of the laughter.
Yeah, it's so good. I remember my next door neighbor coming over to me. I finally played, that kind of thing. And I was like, great. She goes, I had more fun exercising than anything else I've ever done. She she couldn't believe the fun quotient, And I was like, I know it's goofy. I know it's fun, and the laughter. And at our local courts, like the lower levels, are at one end, the higher levels are at the other, but all the laughter is at the lower end. Like the people who are learning and just getting into it, they're just having such a good time. And I think that's partly what gets us hooked.
Yeah. And also that it's so close together. Like, in tennis, you're like, way over there and two serves, and there's a lot of time between points. Here it's just like constant action, and you're kind of close enough to kind of, trash talk or just
say it.
Just converse, whatever it is, good shot, all that kind of stuff. But it keeps going, and so even though you might not move as far as you possibly do on a tennis court, the points are longer, and I don't know, it just the action is faster.
Yeah, it's great. So tell me a little bit about early injuries, and then what did you do differently to where you're not getting injured?
Okay. So I think just I had torn my ACL playing paddle tennis about 5 years before I started pickleball.
Okay.
And had been a little hesitant to get back to really, really moving for a couple years. But during COVID, I kind of was playing a lot of paddle tennis. That was what I was kind of my interim sport. Tennis was my original racket sport that I liked.
Gotcha.
And so I hadn't been playing as much paddle tennis, but when I got into the pickleball, I think I just started practicing too much, and then being in a tournament, my first tournament, I hurt it. So I really just went to physical therapy and did what I had to do, and just kind of used physical therapy as my training. If I wasn't feeling something being hurt, I would just do workout for prevention.
Good.
And I've kind of continued that to this day. So I have a good system, I think, with the people that I work with at Elevate Physical Therapy where I go.
Nice. So are you still going on kind of like a regular interval for kind of prophylaxis?
Absolutely.
Nice.
So yeah, I do. It's hard when you have like for instance, the last tournament travel that I did was about 12 days. So it's not really possible you kind of do what you can, but you're just recovering from the matches and trying to get ready for the next tournament. So, then you have a couple days off maybe when you get back, and then head back over to the training. So I pace it based on what my tournaments are, but I do try to get over there, when I'm home.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the core exercises that you're doing for preventative maintenance?
A lot of core work, glutes,
Yes.
to protect the knees.
Yes.
So
Say more about that, please.
Well, I guess when you utilize your big muscles, your core and your glutes, it can protect some of the smaller areas on the limbs. So
Yes.
that's what I've learned, and it's just got to do it. Got to do bands and fire hydrants and all these different kind of things that don't look that ladylike, but are a little bit goes a long way. That's the other thing I found. You don't have to kill yourself in the gym,
Right.
but just being consistent about doing the basics.
Yes. Yes. I just sent an email this morning about someone asking me, I'd like to get into it. Will it be hard on my back? And I was like, yeah, because your glutes aren't ready.
Right.
And most humans walk on flat surfaces and sit. So we don't activate our glutes in our functional activities of daily living. So they shrink.
Right.
And then you go out on a pickleball court and you start to dink.
Right.
And you're like, I can't bend at and so you bend at the back and,
Yes.
and you start hitting balls incorrectly and then you get these pains and then you ask too much of your knees as you're going up to that line and yeah, something gives when we compensate too much.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I feel really thankful that I have a good physical therapist that kind of IDs those things. She does a good diagnostic of like really what is the issue, and
Yep.
and then it's usually something that's tied back to the glutes or even my calf. They said sometimes that can be connected with the lower back. So everything, you just kind of have to keep it all working together.
Yeah.
And so back to the long days of pickleball. I mean, you really have to keep your whole body warm. It's not like you can rest completely to get cold in
Right.
between the matches. So if you have a 12-hour day or a 13-hour day, you kind of have to just be walking, and you don't want to be on your feet the whole time, but you're kind of just trying never to get too cold or too stiff. So that's a big part of it too, just keeping your body warm enough and loose enough during the days.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think people appreciate that the athleticism required with your legs and your back and your core, and so keeping that body warm to do what it's supposed to do. When we exercise, if our body's at room temperature, the muscles don't work the same way. They're not coordinated. They need to be warm. So
Right.
that's hard to do on a long day because all you want to really do is just kind of like crash out.
I know.
Right? Poop
true.
out in between. And I always joke because there's always like this magic window between because in pickleball, we never know when our next match is,
Exactly.
right? So it's hurry up and wait. And then you're like, if it's too soon, I'm still tired. If it's too long, the rigor mortis is set in and I've stiffened up like a board, right? And then I got to go back out there and I got to go do through my whole warm-up routine again.
I know.
But it's what we got to do.
And sometimes we'll go out and we'll like warm up, and it's not like we need to really like practice our shots again, but it's just like we have to like get out of our stupor of just being off for 45 minutes. We're like, oh, we better go like warm up and just start moving around a little bit, and just to get the body going and the adrenaline going again.
Yep. Super key.
Yep.
So you're doing glutes, doing core. Tell us about core. What kind of core work does your physical therapist have you do?
Just all sorts of stuff. Sometimes it's on a mat.
What's your least favorite?
My least
Do you have a least
favorite?
favorite? Like, oh no, not that one.
I'm trying to think. I don't hate those that much.
Okay.
I don't like the glute stuff as much. That's the ones, like when you do like maybe like a side plank when you're
Yes.
going up and down, like it's kind of multiple things. Those get kind of hard.
Yeah.
I've worked on my back a little bit too,
Okay.
the scap area,
Yes.
and because I can get really tight and sore in there. And
Yep.
so even just small weights, just kind of getting the shoulders back and doing the appropriate, posture when you're doing these exercises. Sometimes just like I said, a little bit goes a long way, but I don't love those, even though it's lightweight. It's hard when you're using smaller muscles to
Yes.
really kind of narrow in on those.
Yep.
I can get sore after I do that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I had I didn't have a rotator cuff tear, but I just had rotator cuff inflammation and irritation from, and so going to get treated, doing those small muscle workouts was funny because part of it was an ego thing as a guy. Like a 5-pound weight was exhausting.
Oh, I know.
You're
I
just
know. She's like, do you want the 2-pound weight or the 3-pound weight?
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
2 now. Now I know. I'm like, the 2.
It's so funny, right? And that's all it takes for those little stabilizer muscles.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that's important for people to remember is what you said, which is the consistency over the duration.
Yeah.
Right? Like 15 minutes of a workout can gas all those muscles.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're good. You're done, and you'll
Right.
feel it at 3:00 in the afternoon. You're like, oh, I hit those today. But that's what it takes in order for them to work properly on the court.
Right. And just to remember to do them when you're feeling good. That's the hardest part, you know. And especially when I'm like tired from trips, it's like, oh, I don't really want to do like calf raises or these little things, you know, for
Yep.
the different muscles on your calf. But that's, you know, I always have to go back to that stuff. Some of the stuff you can just do in your house. I mean,
Yes.
it's not like any of these are that complicated. And then, you know, sometimes on the court you can bring bands and
Yep.
do a little sort of dynamic warm up.
Yep.
Try to do that before I play. So
Nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's been kind of a revelation that my house is my gym when it comes to the stabilizer muscles.
Yeah.
Like I don't need more than body weight or a
Mhm.
single band. Like I had this one band tied to the bottom of my desk, and while I was on Zoom calls, my trainer had me activating my hamstrings
great.
more often, right? So I'm just
Right.
literally doing these little heel kicks while I'm on Zoom calls, and like it's so tiring.
I know. It's
right?
amazing. And you know you're doing it right if it tires out one of those little smaller muscles,
Yes,
right?
yes, tight. And I love that you brought up the lower leg muscles as well. And was that something that you already kind of knew about, or was your physical therapist kind of helping you?
No, I mean, I had when I used to play tennis
Yep.
professionally, I had plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendonitis at times, but
Okay.
never really had calf problems.
Gotcha.
But I felt like when I got into pickleball, I think I strained one of my calf muscles, and that was initially I just took a few weeks off, and then I'm like, oh, I feel good, I'll go back out, and I tried it again. I was good for like 20 minutes, and then
Right.
same thing happened.
Yep.
So basically you have to kind of go in and do some exercises where you are making sure you're initiating all the muscles, getting them activated.
Yes.
So it's really, really basic stuff and looks like it's super easy, but
Yep.
it basically gets everything kicking in, so your little muscles aren't doing all the work.
Yes.
So I felt that stuff, that's been just a go-to for me. I've had to do that for the whole probably year and a half that I've been playing.
Yep. Yeah, I recently started a warm-up routine for myself, and it literally does start with toe taps,
Yeah.
just in the air, and then side to sides, and then circles.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, I'm old enough now to where I don't care what it looks like.
Right.
Right. But if I was like 25, there's no way you
No,
would get me
you'd
to
be
do
like,
that.
this is
No,
embarrassing.
I'd be like, where's the locker room so I can do
Yeah.
this in a stall so no one sees it's me?
Right.
Totally embarrassing. Yeah.
I know.
But now I suffered with plantar fasciitis early
Yeah.
on, and my right Achilles for some reason hates me.
Mhm.
And since I started doing these little tiny warm-ups,
Yeah.
and I'm very devout in doing them, I'm not having the same issues anymore.
That's great.
And
Yeah.
it's fascinating. Like, it's not rocket science, but it does take a little bit of deliberate focus.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I've noticed is the mind muscle connection.
Yeah.
So-
Focusing on what you're doing.
Yeah, like,
kind
because
of-
with these smaller muscles, like, we don't know how to move them.
Right. Oh no, when my therapist would tell me how to do, she's like, take your toe and go like from there, like 10 o'clock to like 4 o'clock. And I would do it. I was like, how come I can't do this looking normally? Like it was like shaking all over the place.
I think I can. I
Yeah.
think I
It's
can.
like getting the brain connected to it. And that was a big focus of hers as well.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
And that way, when it's time, we have that coordination.
Yeah. And then you get a lot better. Like 2 weeks into it, you're like, wow, I can do it now. What was wrong with me 2 weeks ago? No wonder I have an injury, you know?
Yeah. And that's, I have the same, and driving through the core, moving hips and shoulders at the same time. If you're not thinking through that motion, one
Mhm.
fires before the other one, and then yoink, you have a little low back pain. Or
Yeah.
you pull out your shoulder and so all of these different connections, they add up to injuries.
Right.
Right. And then if you're not feeling well, you're not playing well.
Right.
Right.
Oh, it's hard enough to play when you're healthy. So playing when you can't really move or you're worried about something, then you just end up hurting something else too.
Yes. One of my trainers said, who I just interviewed recently, he said, athletes are the world's best compensators. And I thought, oh, that's a good word for us,
Yeah.
because if something's not
we get
working
it done.
right,
We still get it done.
we get it done.
Yeah.
We get the job done.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. At some expense
Right.
of somewhere else.
Right.
Right. We're like, I'm going to dig deep and I'm going to get through it. And
Right.
some
No,
part
I
is
agree.
redlining. And I love how you said with the calf, I think it was your calf, where you took some time off,
Mm-hmm.
felt better, right? And then you went back out and whoop, 20 minutes later.
Right.
And one of the analogies, because I'm a visual learner, I try to think about like that irritation is like on a 10-point scale, but we only feel it at like 8. And then at 10, it breaks, right? So from 0 to 7, we're building that irritation, but it's just below the surface.
Yep.
And then it just takes a little bit to take it. And then we take a little bit of time off and we're like back at 7 and you're like, I'm at 0.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're still at 7.
Right.
Still at 7, right? So how do we relax that all the way down or strengthen that so that we're not constantly going back? And going,
Yeah. No, it's a drag, but I think doing good physical therapy is really important when you have an injury. So
yeah, I love the fact that you're putting in the time even when you're not injured. To just the preventative piece of it is key.
Yep.
When you're on the road and you are traveling and you can't get to the clinic, are there any kind of exercises you do in your hotel room when you remember to? Is there like a go-to?
A lot of
thing?
stretching,
A lot of stretching,
and more dynamic stretching. I used to bring like one of those bands that really you could hold your leg up for a while, and kind of over those. I just do like dynamic stretching because a lot of times it's before I'm going out to the court.
Yep.
I'll just kind of loosen up my body before I head over to the courts, or even at night. I mean, it's usually more about recovery than just fully stretching at that point. So I just packed my bag for tomorrow because I'm going to be traveling tomorrow, and I took out the static stretching band. I'm like, that's over. I did bring my sort of those bands that go around your knees that, if you did side steps, they would activate your glutes and you can do like, the monster walks and different things. Brought those. Have like a couple foam roller type devices. I'm really trying to keep my lower back loose with even just like a couple tennis balls and a neoprene sleeve.
Okay.
So that just kind of putting that against the wall and kind of leaning on it, that helps.
Yeah, release
it's pretty
some
nice.
of that tightness.
And then what else do I do? Sometimes I ice, but I've even gotten away from that. Kind of feeling like if I keep my back loose and just sort of, if nothing's really bad, I'm not icing right now. So
Nice. Great.
Yeah.
Great. I really like how portable the different tools are that we can take on the road.
Right.
It's really easy.
Yeah.
It's also easy not to. So that's why a lot of people don't. They just,
Right.
But it is easy to be able to just throw something in the bag and take a little time. I have to stretch before I go to bed on tournament days afterwards, because otherwise the next day
It's tough.
I'm worse.
No, that's true. And that is, but even at night, I'll still do like not really, really long holds.
Right.
So.
And so when you say, like, for you, an active stretch or a dynamic stretch might look like what? What might be some
like
examples?
a cat-cow for your back or something like that.
That's
It's
so
kind of just
good.
moving. Nothing's really, I don't know. I found that, or I've been told also that when you stretch longer, it actually can make you a little bit too loose sometimes. So then it kind of, you might get hurt.
Yep.
That happened to me once. Like I just like stretched, I was like, I'm all into this now. I'm going to stretch. And I stretched too much. And then I went out and that was the day my back hurt when I was done playing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I loosened up too much. And then it was like too flexible versus just kind of still activating the muscles and stretching at the same time. So.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I did the same thing with my hamstring, overstretched a hamstring one time and yoink, there it went.
Yeah.
So totally relate to that. And I'm a big fan. Like, I went through this physical recovery program recently, and one of the things they talked about was movement. They were just like, the body loves to move, the body needs to move. So I love that you described the cat-cow, which for those of you who aren't familiar with it, you're on your hands and your knees and you're arching your back and then you're kind of craning your back, and you're kind of creating that kind of movement in the low back and really kind of opening up that spine and all those muscles. It feels great.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think I feel, talking about keeping your body moving, if I come home sometimes, after a tournament, if you just want to sit around, those are the worst days for me. If I have to keep moving a little bit or I'll feel even worse.
Yeah. It seems counterintuitive, but the body will recover quicker when we keep it moving, as long as we're not overloading it, but there's this phrase that I kind of came up with when I was trying to understand how much effort to put in. I call it conversational cardio, which is if you're walking with someone in the neighborhood, you're having a conversation, but you're moving. Right. But if you're running, it's hard to have a conversation while you're running. That's too much. That's too much cardio on the body. Right. But anything where you're moving and you could still talk at the same time, then your body's like, yes, thank you. Right. And turns out the research is in that you'll recover quicker that way. So that's why I think dogs are great to have, because like my dogs want to get walked. Right. And they're really walking me.
Yeah.
No,
No, it's good for both of
I
them.
probably wouldn't get out as often and walk as much if we didn't have a dog.
Same with us, yeah. And it's pretty hilly around here, so even if you go for a short little walk, it's like up, down. It's kind of good for your legs.
That's
so,
really good here.
yeah.
Yeah. Outstanding. What, let's see. So tournaments, kind of talked about tournaments, staying warm during the day.
Yep.
Kind of warming up beforehand, doing some active stretching maybe at the end of the day. We talked about the kind of the prophylaxis with the gym. Are there any other recovery kind of tools or approaches that have been helpful for you? Any other devices you use or?
Well, foam rolling, I kind of mentioned that before.
Yep.
I think that's sort of like I do that with my stretching. So
Okay.
that's like, I think really important. It just kind of stretches for you. I mean, it stretches all the fascia.
Yes.
It just kind of, feels good.
Yep.
It's like a little massage.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll use one of the Theraguns or Hypervolts or something like that, but
Yep.
I feel like I don't need those as much.
Yeah. I also can't reach my back with those.
Yeah, it's tough.
And the foam roller,
just lay on it,
gravity,
yeah.
you're just on it and you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's the spot.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're like,
Yeah, exactly.
Are you having fun yet? No, this is awful. Like, do you have an extender? Or like, I love that they've invented these like wall mounts for these things now because they figured out like no one can reach their back.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I haven't seen that.
But it's hilarious because it's like this contraption, that you put the gun in and then you lean against the gun. It's the best of a bad situation, but I see humor. All I see is comedy.
That's funny.
Rather than just being on my back going, oh, seems easier.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Tell me any kind of nutrition or hydration when it comes to fueling your body. What have you noticed? What works for you? What hasn't worked for you? Because I know every body is an individual case basis, but there are definitely some best practices out there.
Right.
What's been working for you in managing that?
Well, I try to be really prepared for the long days that I've spoken about. So I bring a ton of food to the courts.
You mean you don't get the tri-tip at the food truck?
Is there a tri-tip at the food truck? Maybe I should go there. No, no, I don't do that. I really, it's hard to eat when you're trying to stay warm and you're trying to. It's hard to kind of eat a significant amount at any one point. So if I don't love eating in the morning. So if I play at 8, I probably won't even eat before I go there. But I'll bring some yogurt or hard-boiled eggs or some kind of things. Like I like oatmeal a lot of times, but I try to get some protein in the morning.
Yep.
And then I used to have like peanut butter and bread and what else? I always bring fruit, juice as a backup. And then I'll have electrolytes and water all day, of course. But I would try to, I get really burnt out on whatever it is that's sort of in my bag. I like kind of don't want to see that again for a while. So I've kind of gotten into eating these little mozzarella cheese things that I like and crackers, just as like a little protein. So it's not all carbs.
Yep.
And what else do I like? I don't know. I like grapes, blueberries, and I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my current go-to stuff. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah. No, it's great. I'm always curious how people stay, fueled up during the day because it's like I said, like I'm not going to the food truck. There was a pizza truck at wherever we were in Ohio recently, and it was just like the greasiest, horrible disgust that any athlete would want to put in their body.
Well, it also takes too much time sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know if you're tired and you don't know when you're going to play again. You don't really. Maybe there's a line. You just don't know how long it'll take. So, I usually get what I can. In advance.
and graze along the way.
Yeah, force feed. I mean, that's why yogurt and sort of like a mild cheese, they have protein and not too much sugar. I usually get something without too much sugar in it, so I don't just fall off the ledge.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll bring bars and things like that too.
What kind of bar do you like?
I like Lara bars.
Lara bars.
Yeah, only 6 ingredients, so
okay.
Not a lot of preservatives.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Contrast that with the trip home from my last, where I was on Southwest and they gave me the snack mix and I flipped it over and the entire back was ingredients.
Yeah.
And I couldn't pronounce any of them.
Yep.
And it had been a long trip, so I'm not going to lie. It didn't stop me from breaking open and going, oh, MSG, or whatever was in there that I just can't pronounce, But I did wince when I saw the ingredients on the back. Oh, this is not food.
Yeah.
This is technically,
I know.
this is going to survive the ice age.
Right, exactly.
and in a moments of weakness, But during the day at a tournament, you really like what, I think simpler ingredients, your body is probably happier. So Llama Bar, any favorite flavor or your?
I like banana bread.
Ooh,
it's a good one.
That sounds good.
Yeah. And then, I've tried them all. The company that I use their paddle, Pro XR, which is a great company, they often have a lot of healthy goodies like at the tournaments for us. So
nice.
They kind of got me into them.
Okay. Thank you, Pro XR.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think, what else do I have? Yeah, I kind of don't think I've had peanut butter for like 3 months. I actually just, because it was such a go-to at the beginning because it could kind of go down, in between matches. Now I can't stand it. So
I was gonna say it's halfway around the, it's
I'll be back to it eventually.
You'll be back, but it's still on the far side.
It's on the far side right now. But yeah, there's, we have our little routine. Some of the gals that I, travel with and have fun with, we'll go to the grocery and we'll look for things that we can handle. But it's just kind of like a little routine we have like the day before the tournament.
That's fun. That's fun.
It is fun.
Wherever you are, right?
Yeah.
It's like a scavenger hunt.
Yeah, we're like, we need a real grocery store. It's funny trying to figure out where you're going to go at these different places.
Yes, it is. I remember being at the dollar store in Atlanta and there weren't a lot of options in the dollar store. It really, I struck out in that shopping center where my hotel was. I was like, this is not good. This isn't going to end well. So it is an adventure on the road.
Definitely.
All right, Beth. Well, thanks for joining us on Pickleball Recovery.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was great to chat with you.
Woohoo. Thanks so much for listening. Do you want to know the number one mistake picklers make that leads to increased pain, soreness, stiffness, and injury? Just head over to www.pickleballrecovery.com and download my free guide to playing with less pain and more enjoyment. Listen, pickleball makes us feel young at heart, but not necessarily young in body. So go download my free guide at www.pickleballrecovery.com. See you next time.